I'm walking here. Hey YouTubes, how you doing? My name's Big Time Teddy, and today we are making my favorite kind of pasta, the creamy kind. In lockdown, I was making a lot of pasta, if I could find any. I got into the rigatoni, I got into the penne, I got into the spaghetti. I love it all, I can't get enough. If you've watched one of my previous videos, I sort of go on this whole spiel talking about the Checo pasta. Fantastic stuff. But I'm not going to hyperbolize too much at the top of this. Let's get right into cooking, right? First things first, bring a pot of salted water to a boil. Then once that's heating up with the lid on top, let's gather up our ingredients. For this, we're going to use some spinach. We're going to use some red pepper flake. We're going to use some better than bouillon paste. Now this is a specific type of bouillon that comes in a little jar. It's very similar to sugo, so if you have sugo, use that. I would have used sugo here, but something happened, and it was ruined, so that's all I'll say about that. No, I did not leave the pot on the stove for too long and forget about it until it became a charred hunk at the bottom of my pot. That is what happened. So you're going to want to get your spinach, your olive oil, your red pepper flake, your garlic, your homemade broth, your bouillon paste or some sugo if you have it, some heavy cream, and some Parmesan. That's all the ingredients. Not too many, just the way I like it. And of course, you're going to want some salt and pepper. Let's get to it. I'm using penne for this recipe, but honestly, use whatever pasta you like. I like something that's tube shaped because it has a lot of ridges that help soak up the sauce real nice. I'm walking here. All right, so let's prep our garlic. You're gonna put those cloves on your cutting board and smash them flat with a knife. This will allow you to peel off the paper really easily. And then we're just gonna give it a rough chop. You don't need to get too crazy. You wanna have some chunks of garlic left over because we're gonna be cooking it for a while. Now, after you've done that, let's take our large pan. I have a really, really large frying pan for this. It's probably about a 12-inch. That should do it for you. Coat it at the bottom with oil, add about a tablespoon or two of olive oil, and then put that over medium heat. Once that heat is going, add some red pepper flake just to let those flavors sort of wake up. I'm walking here. Okay, so now we're gonna add our garlic. Now we're gonna add our garlic, and we're gonna put it in with the red pepper flake and just let that simmer a little bit until fragrant. You don't wanna do it for too long before you move on to the next step. Once that garlic starts smelling, I added spinach. Now, generally speaking, you don't wanna add spinach at this point. I would say probably add the broth and other stuff first, but I added the spinach here. You don't have to add the spinach here. It probably cooked for too long, but it still tasted good. So now, once we have our garlic, we're adding just about a half a cup of broth and about a tablespoon or so of your sugo or of your bouillon, and just stir that around with a whisk until it's incorporated. Now we're gonna add about half a carton of heavy cream. That's a lot of cream, I know, but you just wanna add that, let it sort of simmer a bit and start to emulsify. The goal here is that you want this sauce to thicken up really, really nicely. And the bouillon is gonna add a nice layer and depth of flavor. So once it's simmering, feel free to toss in some bay leaves at this point if you want. If you have them, go for it. If not, that's fine too. All right, so let that simmer and reduce real nice. You wanna be able to drag a spoon across the bottom so it leaves a path. So now our water's boiling. Let's make sure we've added enough salt. You can always taste it. They say it should taste like seawater. Very seldomly have I over-salted water when I'm making pasta. You definitely wanna put in more than you think. I've seen some recipes that are like, add a tablespoon of salt, and that's all you need. Not the case. You'll notice that I didn't add any salt to this sauce yet because there's gonna be plenty of salt in that salted pasta water. Cook your pasta according to the package directions. If your sauce is thick enough, you can take it off the heat and wait. Uh-oh, look out, surprise salmon coming in, baby. You didn't know I was gonna do a little salmon fillet with this pasta, but guess what? I'm doing it, baby. These are some delightful skin-on sockeye salmon fillets. I patted them dry with a paper towel and seasoned them really well with salt and pepper before I started cooking. So for this, I used some really good butter that I had, and I'm not gonna lie, using really quality butter makes a significant difference when you're cooking. Using a high quality butter gave me a much better result than what I was expecting in the first place. You wanna melt your butter in the skillet, it's gonna foam. You wanna wait until it just about stops foaming and keep it on medium heat. You don't want to be too hot. If your butter starts foaming and smoking, that's too hot. Turn the heat down or just turn it off altogether and let it cool down before you add your salmon. So you want to put it over medium heat and then put your salmon fillets in and make sure to press them down so that you can get all that skin contact on the pan. So we're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes. Don't touch those fillets. Just let them sit and do their thing. So at about this point, it's time to check on our pasta. What I like to do is I'll fish out a piece and I'll just eat one to see how it tastes. We're not trying to cook the pasta all the way here because we're going to add the pasta into the sauce and that's going to finish out the cooking. What I'll also do is I'll cut a piece in half, kind of like I did here, and you're going to see that there's still a little circle like of dry pasta there. That's perfect. We're going to pull the pasta now, and again, trust your gut. Give it a taste. If it's still like crunchy, let it cook. But if it has a nice chew, almost with just a hint of crunch, it's time to pull because that hint of crunch is going to cook off before you start eating after you put it into the pasta sauce. So we drain the pasta really well, try to get as much water as you can off of there, and now we're gonna add the pasta into our big pan with the sauce and stir it around until it's incorporated. You wanna just let that sit so that that pasta can soak up some of that sauce and really get all of that flavor deeply into the pasta. Okay, so we're gonna flip our salmon fillets over, add another tab of butter, and we're just gonna take a spoon and make sure you're using an oven mitt if your pan doesn't have one of those heat-proof handles. I'm using a cast iron here, so I've learned pretty quickly that you need to have a towel or something over it if you're gonna be using your left hand to get some power. Tilt it up and just start spooning some of that hot, delicious butter all over that salmon. You're gonna do this for about a minute or two, and you can kind of see how that salmon's kind of cooking, right? It almost acts almost like an oven. So let that sit after you spoon butter over it for about a minute or two. If you want to add some aromatics here, that's a great idea, like maybe some thyme or some whole garlic cloves might be nice just to really infuse it with some flavor. So now we're going to take a look at the pasta. It's looking pretty good. We're going to stir it around a bit. Make sure the heat is off, and we're going to add about half a cup to a cup of grated Parmesan. It's so important to make sure that the heat is not on when you add the Parmesan because you want the residual heat from the cooked pasta and the sauce to melt that cheese, and you don't want to add any heat because that's when you start getting grainy, unpleasant pasta. I also grate my Parmesan on a microplane. The microplane's nice because it really gets really thin shreds of Parmesan. Give it a stir, and it's time to serve. The salmon is looking pretty good. I just flipped it over one more time just to make sure that it looked cooked through. You want to let the salmon sit for about 10 to 15 minutes after you flip it for the last time, and if you really want to make sure that it's done, go ahead and flake it with a fork. I've cooked salmon in a bunch where I kind of feel confident that it's pretty much done, but if you really want to be sure, you can always use an oven thermometer or just make sure that it's flaking. Now we're going to take our salmon and we're going to take our pasta and we're going to plate up our meal. I like to put the salmon skin side up because I love that crispy skin on the salmon. And oh, baby, look at this. This dinner was fantastic and came together relatively quickly. So it's a nice weeknight dinner if you happen to have the salmon. If you don't, that's fine too. The pasta is enough to be a meal on its own. That with a nice salad, woo! Maybe a nice little glass of wine too. So that's it, folks. That's my surprise salmon and my creamy spinach umami bouillon pasta. I know I haven't posted in a while, but I'm back, baby. I'm gonna be uploading again regularly, and I am so excited to share more content with you. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Cooking with Ted. We'll see you next time. I'm walking here.